programs improve students' intercultural competence. So I'd like to welcome Korina to the podium. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm gonna try to do it like without microphone. If you cannot hear me, just let me know. But I don't know if you need microphone for the recorder.
You have the wireless microphone.
Okay, let me see. Maybe I'm gonna be too loud. Okay, so good morning. My name is Fabregas and I work for Oklahoma State University. I work in the College of Human Sciences, but I used to work for a Mexican university and I worked for them 29 years, so don't do the math. So when I was working for them, I worked in Mexico and then they, we sent a lot of MOUs and nothing happened until someone decided to follow up all the MOUs that you signed. So they sent me to Oklahoma to try to work something out with the MOU that we signed with them. And we start working in this master dual degree program that I'm going to show you. I think it's one of the most successful programs in international education right now, because we have right now, UPAEP has right now, these master dual degree programs with Russia, with universities in Europe, and with like 3 or 4 universities in the United States. So I'm going to show you the model, because we have problems with the students that come here, because we kind of sell the program with the idea that the students are going to improve the way that they are going to marketing themselves. And then at the end, we discovered that we need to work harder. It's not just the classes, but we need to give them a little more training and a little more information, so they really can learn how to live in a global society. It's not just coming here, taking the classes, and that's magical, and then go back and they are in global citizens. That's not happening. So I'm going to show you. Okay, so what is a master dual degree program? A master dual degree is a program where they study 1 year in Mexico and 1 year in the United States. You can start in Mexico or you can start in the United States, but do the support that we have from the Mexican government. The Mexican government is helping the students, and not just the Mexican students, but the international students, to get a scholarship. So the best way to do it, if you want to get the scholarship, is to start in Mexico. So they start 1 year in Mexico, they travel 1 year to the United States, and they get 2 master degrees. Okay? So you can do 2 master degrees in approximately 2 years in 2 different countries. The clue here is that we sign an MOU with the universities and they transfer 50% of the credit hours that they take in another university. That's a very different thing, because I don't know in your university, but at Oklahoma State you only can transfer 9 credit hours. But with this program you can transfer 50% of the credit hours. So you study in Mexico 1 year, 1 year here, and you get 2 master's degrees. So here are some examples of the master degrees that we are having between UPAEP and Oklahoma State. I'm going to tell you, UPAEP is a private university in Mexico. The students pay money to go there. Oklahoma State, as you know, is a public university. The in-state tuition that our students pay at Oklahoma State, that is part of the MOU, allow the Mexican students to pay very close to the money that they pay in Mexico. Without a state tuition, this program will be impossible. So in the MOU, we have in-state tuition included, we have the transfer of the credit. So basically the success of the program is basically the negotiation before the program starts. And one of the things that I want to point out is that you don't have to do the same master program in both countries. You can do, for example, international business at UPAEP, and you can do international studies at OSU. We have programs in business, we have programs in engineering, and we have programs in education now. Okay? So by 2015, we have 62 students with that has graduated from the master dual degree program. And right now, 14 students are enrolled. And one of the things that are impressive is that we have 100% of graduation rate. All the students that start the program finish the program. And I don't know in your universities, but Oklahoma State, the number is not very close to 100. Okay? So 100% of the students is a very, very good rate. One of the things that CONACYT, the government agent that like put the money so the students can come, is that if they don't finish, they have to pay back. But if they finish, they don't have to pay back. So that's a good motivation. So the students that come here, they have like 8,000 pesos in Mexico every month for 1 year. And when they come to the United States, they double the money that they get. It's not enough money to pay for everything, but the students, as international students, they can work 20 hours inside the university. So between the scholarship and between the time that they can work, they survive. It's not that they have a super fancy life, but they are okay. Okay. So one of the things that worry me, and I'm kind of, this is my research area at the university, is that we, and you know, because you have experience with international students, the students come and go, and they don't change. The reality is that we offer them a lot of international opportunities, but I don't know in your universities, but in some universities that I know, they offer faculty-led experience. The students travel 1 or 2 weeks with a professor. The students travel to Paris. They eat in McDonald's. They talk with their friends all the time in English. They don't have any experience or any contact with the students from the other countries. So they just come back, and the only thing different that they have is that they have maybe $3,000 or $4,000 less than what they live. And that's a reality. That's, I don't know, in your university, but in a university that is normally what is happening. We study almost 200 students in the College of Agriculture because we offer faculty-led experiences, and then we offer I-classes for international classes. And we assess if the students change after those experiences, and the reality is that we didn't see any change. So we have to add more to our international experience. It's not just the magic of being there. Okay? So what would we do? We use the IDI. The first article in the journal is about the IDI. We use that. Why? Because it's easy to use. You can use it online, and because it's really one of the top instruments to assess intercultural competence. For me, they give you a number, and it's very hard for my colleagues say, I don't know if this is right or this is wrong. When you do qualitative research, you have a lot of arguing when you present your results. But when you have numbers, it's hard to argue, because the professors, of course, they say, hey, I'm sure that my experience changed the students. And when I'm just talking like hypothetical, I don't know in your university, but that's life. Okay, and the other thing is that the target population that we use for the master students enrolled in the spring of 2013, and both they were 20 students, and 70% of them answered the study. So here is what they feel. Remember, in the IDI, the two more important measures that you can do is, one is the perceived orientation, is the place where the people think that they are. That sometimes I like to think is the place that they would like to be, so I can be nicer. And the other one is the developmental orientation, the place where they really are. So the perceived orientation, I'm not surprised, and if you have seen the instrument, we are all in acceptance. We believe that we are absolutely capable to work with people from another culture. We know that we are different, but we are able to manage the cultural differences. Here is where we are. In the second stage, that comes it's like a monocultural mindset, and it's polarization. I was hearing the professor talking about the Taiwan culture, and the questions that you are saying, that is a very, very like classical conversation about polarization, when we decide what is like them and us and I'm kind of the judge between the cultures. I moved to the United States and I start admiring everything about the United States. Then I live here for 6 months, and then I start thinking why they don't change the way that we do. I'm just gonna give you an example. I remember when I came to the United States, I think in the night, like worse than polarization, but I remember thinking, why the American people is kicking out their kids when they are 18 and let them go to the universities by themselves? I have a sister that lives in Mexico. Her son is 28 and he's still living with her. My son is living now outside in the university, and let me tell you, he's 22, and God bless America. I'm just so happy, so happy. So we need to learn that there are good and there are bad things, and that we are not the judge to say everything that we do in Mexico is incredible good. Everything that you do in the United States is really bad. But that's the place where our students in the master dual degree program are. They are in polarization. That is a stage that if you go and work with a company and your co-workers are from China, from Taiwan, you are going to be criticizing them all the time. And that's a terrible situation, because you cannot make a team if I believe that I'm better than you. Or I believe that my culture is this big and your culture is this big. Okay? Because it can be both sides. So what are we going to do? So the idea is that we should move everybody to the acceptance part of the continuum. That should be our goal. Our goal is that our students should know that we are different, and being different is okay. I don't want to be like you, and I'm sure that you don't want to be like me. Okay? We need to know that we are different, and we need to know that there are ways that we need to negotiate. I teach a class at Oklahoma State, and I set the rules at the beginning, because we take students from a lot of cultures. So we set the rules because we know that we are different. I set the rules, for example, if you don't want me to get too close, I won't. Okay? If I'm too loud, I'm gonna try to down. If I'm too pushy, okay? But you have to negotiate. I'm not very good for the time, but I'm gonna make an effort and be on time. Okay? So you have to negotiate with people with another culture, not setting your rules, because your rules are not always like so incredible that everybody has to do it. Okay? You have to negotiate each one of the rules. Okay, so we ask another questions. For example, we asked, before I arrived to the United States, I received training. They didn't receive any training when they came to the United States. They just sent it, and that was it. It was the TOEFL, all the things, but at the end is not a training in intercultural competence. But they are aware that living in the United States is very important for the development of their career. Or during the months that you live in the United States, I have a very clear idea of cultural differences. Or during the time that I live in the United States, I was able to accept cultural differences. They say that they do, but accepting cultural difference will increase my leadership, I think. But I'm sure that the cultural, check this, I don't think that, they don't think that the culture is admired. And that was interesting. So what are we gonna do? Okay. The perceived orientation is in the acceptance, the developmental orientation is in polarization, and obviously there is 34 points between the one another one. So the students, when we present the results, they were surprised because they really thought that they were intercultural competent. And the night was not resolved. That was the orientation that was there. They didn't talk about cultural difference, and they need to talk. We need to learn how to talk about cultural difference, and that's very important. If I don't like something from you, talk to me. Okay? But sometimes I think that the Americans are so polite that they don't want me to get offended. I won't! Talk to me! Okay? For example, one of the things that kill me, and I'm not very good for that, is that in Mexico we talk in a group, everybody at the same time. It's not rude to interrupt. And here in the United States, you wait and then the other people they speak. Okay? In Mexico, you breathe and the other people jump into the conversation. So if you don't want me to do that, tell me, Lupita, I think what you are doing makes me uncomfortable. Please wait until I finish and then why don't we talk about those things? I'm not get offended very easy. Okay? And another thing is that the contextual questions indicate a lack of training, and that's what we need to do. Okay? So what are we going to do? What is our conclusion or our recommendations to the Dean of the Graduate College in Mexico? The first is that we need to keep assessing intercultural competency. We need to put intercultural competency in the table, because I don't care if you are a great engineer, if you cannot work in a team with people from Asia or people from Europe, you are not going to work in my team. Okay? So you need to have more than technical preparation to work in an international team. Another thing is that after they completed international students, they need to have a plan. Because if you don't do, I know that my number is number 3, but I don't do anything to be number 5. They need to sit and say, what am I going to do? Am I going to read a book? Am I going to do this? What are the things that you are going to do to improve your intercultural competence? Okay? And then, well, the assessment, okay, receive more information. And what is like that? What I do? Okay. Where is the number 4? I don't know, I don't think that I have a number 4. Okay. So we need to train the students. We need to be sure that they understand the importance, and at the arrival of the United States, they need to live with people that is not from their culture. If they get with their friends, live with the Mexicans, so they're never going to interact with the students. So we need to make an effort. This is not easy. I'm very happy with my Mexican friends. I don't have to be on time, I can speak Spanish, and I can be myself. I have to make an effort to be with my American friends. So that's what the students need to understand, that the classes are important, but the classes are not the most important. The most important is the international experience as a whole. Their goal should be to become intercultural competent, and that's it. So thank you very much.
So we have time for a couple questions at this point, if there's anyone. Sorry, I need to use the mic. Question?
Yes. Yeah, just a quick clarification. The data you presented on the perceived and their actual orientations, that was done after the program?
After the program.
Okay, so was there any baseline established?
No, we didn't know at the beginning. But I don't think that they changed a lot, because they cannot be worse.
Any other questions?
Yes. So, since there's such a gap, what do you do with those who evidence lowered levels on the IDI? What would they offer, provide, suggest?
The thing that we are going to do next year is we are going to give them a session to fill their intercultural developmental plan, and they are going to have goals, and we are going to be sure that they achieve the goals. The first thing is that they are not going to be able to live with their Mexican friends. That's the first step. Another thing, they are not going to be able to take classes all together, because 15 of the class, all of them took this class, all of them took the class. They are at Oklahoma State in their mini Mexico. So that's what we are going to do. We are going to push them hard.
Are you thinking about the course orientation?
Yes, orientation.
One or 2 weeks.
Question?
The question.
Are you thinking about a course orientation of 1 or 2 weeks?
We need to do that. Yeah, we need to do orientations before they arrive, But we need to keep an eye on them during the whole semester because they are only 1 year outside the United States. For example, we have students now that Walmart are training to go back to Mexico. What are they going to do when they go back to Mexico? Criticize everything that we do? They cannot do that. What kind of training are they receiving here in the United States? So we need to be sure that they have enough information to make the right decisions when they are working. Thank you very much. My pleasure.
Thank you very much. Okay, now I navigate. Two mics. So, and now I'd like to introduce our second speaker. We have 4 authors. No? Okay, so we're working a little bit with PowerPoint. So we have 4 presenters. If you look on the schedule, you'll see 4 presenters: Ariadna, Isabel, Lopez, Damian, John Levin, 3 presenters: John Levin and Evelyn Morales Vazquez from the University of California at Riverside. And we have the right PowerPoint. Yay! All of it's happening at once. So let me introduce, our speaker. Thank you.
Hi, good morning, how are you? My name is Ariadna Lopez. I'm a student at the University of California, Riverside. I'm here in behalf of my colleagues who are part of this research, but to make this more easy to explain, we decided that only me is going to be here, so you can criticize only me and they can be more safe. So the research I'm going to present is international faculty members at a master university in California, person-environment fit analysis. What I do here is doing an anti-deficit analysis of what is good with international faculty, how it's been done well for them to be adapted to a master university institution. In order to do that, I also analyze some of the issues they have had, and I use this particular theory to explain it. To give you a little bit of background about this project, these interviews were done in 2012, and the larger study was about productivity. From those interviews that included faculty from different backgrounds, we selected those faculty that were international students, that they were either not citizens or they were foreign-born. Some of them became naturalized and now they are American citizens, but in the beginning they weren't. So that was the way to select these people. So, even when I'm saying that I'm using an anti-deficit perspective, I'm starting with a problem, but more than a problem, it's more like a context for us to understand where are we. So, thank you for the introduction, by the way, in the morning about the numbers of people that is participating in education that are not from the United States. Me, myself, as you can see from my accent, I'm not from here, I'm from Mexico. This is my 3rd year, and CONACYT is paying a scholarship for me to be here, so a lot of what I'm hearing relates directly to what I did, right? But most of the literature is focusing particularly in international students, so there's a necessity to also talk about international faculty. Something important is that international faculty go through a specific process and needs for recruitment, retention, and to adaptation to institutional demands. So we know that all faculty have to adapt to a new workplace, but international faculty have specific needs. In this, having this in mind, my purpose, or the purpose we had when we did the analysis of the data, was to explain the ways in which international faculty anticipatory ideas of what it means to be a faculty correspond or not correspond to their perception of the role and demands in the present institution. That is, we compare what they thought they were going to do, what they think of what they are doing, and if this is coherent, there is a fit or a misfit. Before doing the analysis, we reviewed the literature, and we found that, of course, international faculty are different from domestic faculty. The sources of difference are, yes, country of origin, but also gender is very important, the race and ethnicity, the language, and the country of education. So faculty who did all their studies in their country or outside of the United States are going to have a different experience than faculty who maybe had a bachelor's degree in a different state but a PhD in the United States. Additionally, most of international faculty, well, we saw some of the figures, they are in basic and applied science. They work primarily at doctoral institutions. And something that we know also from these studies is that international faculty tend to make more money than domestic faculty. The studies can't find, they don't give like an hypothesis or why this is going on, but apparently it could be related to the level of productivity. International scholars tend to produce more articles. This could be related with the fact that they leave their family back home, so they focus all their effort in their work. Or they feel that they are more in danger of not being, having the green card or whatever, or not being hired again, so they are overachievers in order to secure they will have this position. And their research also showed that these differences in productivity and in the way they live their profession is related to the workplace and to the country of origin. That is, the workplace is one of the elements that determines how are they going to adapt to the United States. In terms of how the adaptation occurs, there are some studies that show that international faculty face prejudice and discrimination related to skin color and language. Above all, international faculty whose English is second language. Additionally, there's differences in the organization of the classroom. We heard some of the examples when we were at the table when they were discussing how Chinese education and the American education is, right? That occurs for other countries as well. There's one study that Auger did in 2013, and he analyzes what are the differences some international scholars see between their country of origin and the United States, and the reasons for them to prefer to work here. They are related to the number of jobs. The United States is considered to offer more possibilities to find a position. There is less hierarchization in the work. So people who compare their country of origin, they think that when they go back and find a job, they will be more likely to become subordinates. That is, follow the orders for more senior faculty. While here, they think that they can follow a more personal agenda for research or for teaching. Additionally, they think that it's easier to get tenure in the United States. And something that is also important is that gender issues, also they consider that there are gender issues in the United States. There are less important or less aggressive than in their country. That it's easier for women to make a good career here, academic career here. Something particularly that is important for all that are considering this particular institution, a master institution, is that the period of adaptation of a faculty member is shorter in bigger cities, but also shorter in smaller institutions. So they are going to adapt easier to smaller institutions, but they are going to adapt easier if it's in a big city. This may be related because of to the diversity of the city, or also because they can find more people to relate to. To explain you a little bit what the person-environment fit theory says, is that first, individuals' behaviors and attitudes in an organization are determined by the interaction of personal and situational factors. So it's not only what the people think, but also what the institution or the city or the place where it is like. But there's important to have a differentiation here. So what we use, the concept we use is subjective person-environment fit. That is, we don't really care if they actually fit with the place, we care if they think that they fit in their place. This theory also says that if a person, it doesn't matter, for example, if you think that you receive enough money for what you do, it doesn't really matter how much money you receive, because you're happy with that money anyway. And that's the part we were looking for. Also, if you think that everyone hates you, it doesn't matter if they really hate you or not. Your state of mind is perceiving everything in that way. So that's what we're looking for, what they think about their relationship with the environment. And something more is that when there's a misfit, that is when faculty or people at a workplace thinks that there's an incongruence between them and the workplace, there are two outcomes, or two different ways to, according to this theory, to act. One of them are coping mechanisms, and the other are defense mechanisms. Defense mechanisms are more like denial, right? Like, I pretend that nothing is going on, and I just continue with my life, and I just complain, but I don't do anything. But coping mechanisms are strategies that faculty use to adapt to this new environment. And this is the part that is the focus of this, of what I'm going to present, and the paper we did. This is how it works. So you have the subjective person, the subjective environment. There's either a fit or a misfit. If there's a misfit, there are coping mechanisms or defense mechanisms. Defense mechanisms make you think that there's a fit. Defense mechanisms, yeah. And coping mechanisms actually change the subjective person, change how you think about yourself and your relationship with the institution, the university in this case. So we tried to answer these three questions, which basically we wanted to see what is there a fit or a misfit? What are the sources of this fit or misfit? And what do faculty do when they found this incongruence? We use a qualitative strategy. We did interviews. Since we only care about what they thought, we didn't go and see if they make enough money or if they have a lot of classes. We just consider that what they say is what matters the most. And we use semi-structured interviews as first data analysis, data collection technique. The data set, it was specific for female faculty. Something that I forgot to mention in the beginning is that the literature has found that there are important gender differences in the sense that it is considered that international female faculty members are stories or evidence of immigration success, but not necessarily academic success. So they are here, they have works, but they are not doing as good as they could. Therefore, we focus on women. They have been in the university. We studied between 2 and 23 years. They were from 3 different countries. They were from specifically 2 disciplines. And all of them had at least 1 degree in the United States. For 3 of them was the PhD, and for the other person, because there were 4 participants in this study, was the bachelor degree. We read the interviews, we're trying to see the real meaning that was there. We read and read and read until we really find how they felt about their institutions and themselves in the institutions. First, how do they fit in these institutions? They feel like they fit or they don't. Clarissa, who works in psychology, says, so like Dali, at this university, they had a component within the psych department that was family-oriented. So for my topic, it was a very perfect fit for my research. Also, I really liked the faculty members that I meet here when I came for my visit. In this case, we see that is the discipline, the people who's in the department, and not necessarily the institutions that create this fit. So people fit with the department. Additionally, someone else said, I came from a background in which I grew up in a very poor neighborhood. There was never a discussion of if I was going to go to college. I was just going to go to high school and I was going to go to work. I chose to work with people with my similar background. This particular faculty member chose to work at a master's institution because of the characteristics of the students. This was a thing that was repeated with all the interviews. How they perceive the students make them feel their work more valuable. And they choose to work with students that look like them when they were students as well. In terms of the misfit, something that came up is that service is not the most popular activity among this faculty. One of them was actually really she just hated this activity. Community work, you have to do it. It's not a big deal for us. We just do it because we have to. Nobody does it because they enjoy it. It's necessary, so it's not an important part of our lives. You just do it. You serve in a committee, of course, for development, to evaluate the dean or to bring a new president. It's nothing. There's nothing good about committee work most of the time. So what we're seeing here is that the dichotomy between teaching and research, even at a master's university, is more valuable. And other activities, service, that means the relationship with the institution is given a secondary importance. So, by the theory, we know that these activities help the person to know how to navigate and how to develop in the institution. But if they are perceiving it this way, this is hindering their possibilities to further relate to the institution. Another reason of misfit, we have some students who are kind of weak in math and science, so that's probably the most frustrating part for me. So in one sense, I guess, yeah, sometimes I wish that those students had like remedial courses. In this case, if you see, if the students are both saying source of fit and misfit. It depends on the perception of the faculty. In this particular faculty, the problem was that she didn't know the type of students she would be working with. She studied at a Year 1 institution, so she was waiting that type of student, not a problem-like student. So she wasn't prepared for this type of students. And she was, later in the interview, we could perceive that she was feeling guilty, that she wasn't giving the students what they needed. So she was kind of blaming the institution because we need to bring better students. So what did they do when they find these misfits? Most of them, the period of adaptation, they mention it like the first 5 years, most of them before tenure. Only one of them, since she had been there in that university for 2 years and a half, well, that she was still in her period of adaptation. But what was most important is that during that period, what they had to learn was the hierarchy of activities in the mission of the institution. They had to learn that for the mission, teaching goes first, then research goes second, then service, you have to do it. But that research was going to be an important part of the evaluation for them to continue in the institution. Once they learned that, they felt there was a change in how they felt they fit in the institution. In particular, this faculty member, she was the one that still showed a misfit, a stronger misfit because of her interest in research. She said, or she describes how she organized everything to be able to do more research. Other strategies that followed was to decrease okay, so all these faculty love to teach, although all of them say they love to teach. The problem was the amount of hours they need for teaching. And that was part of the adaptation in the first 5 years. During the first 5 years, they have all these new classes, so they have to prepare all the material, but after that, when the classes start repeating, then the fit is better because they can organize their time better. We know that that's kind of similar for faculty which are not international faculty as well. So what are the implications of this? First, that the environment of the institution not only includes the structural and institutional elements. It's not just about the policies, it's also about the students. It's important that faculty know the demographics of the students. So if we're going to invite new faculty to come here, part of the discussion has to be on how the students are like, where they come from, what's the background. Additionally, discipline is the reason that determines the balance between teaching, research, and service. So it's not only how the institution thinks it should be, But if their discipline is more research-like, the misfit is going to be larger or bigger. The adaptation to the institution, the adaptation to the new environment, of course, in layers, and we could say is inductive. They have to adapt first to the department, then to the institution, then to the region, then to the country. And then we know, like, if we have this type of faculty in our schools, we can plan a way to introduce them in that order to the changes they are going to face. Something else is that for this particular faculty, the country of origin or the characteristics of the system in their country wasn't as important as the institutional type where they get their PhD. So the reason for them to find a misfit is because they were taught how to be a faculty member at a research institution, not at a master's university institution. Then, that also has to be part of the discourse when we bring new faculty. One of them said, and the way, two of them from two different countries, there's not such a thing as a master institution in their countries. So even when they were told that the teaching load was heavier, they didn't understand what that meant. So we need to make those things clearer in order to make them adapt better. And finally, interest is not synonym of time. Of course, it's not, two different words. But what I mean is, even when they say that they are really interested in teaching and motivating, and it's one of their favorite activities in the whole universe, they prefer to spend more time doing research. So that's something that has to be taken into consideration when policies are made in an institution and when explanations about what it means to be a faculty member at a master's institution is done for this faculty. And that would be my presentation.
Do you have any questions?
I can just start. How recently, you said you completed this in 2012?
Yes. Yes.
I was very much struck by the similarity between what you said about international faculty and my experiences, both personal and working with faculty. Any faculty member that walks onto, for example, this campus, which is primarily a master's campus, as is every CSU. Have you had time to compare your findings with findings related to new faculty in general? Primarily, how do their experiences compare with the institution where they got their PhD, since that is their primary basis of comparison to what their experiences are as a new faculty member?
Yeah, one of the differences would be that faculty in the United States understand a little bit better what a master university means, but not really. They are still educated, as you said, for research type institutions, but there's also, I can say in terms of numbers because this is a qualitative research, but in terms of the knowledge, national students, national scholars tend to select these institutions in a sense of give back, while for international students, international faculty could be related in some cases with, I took the first job they offered me because I wanted to stay in the United States. But I'm just telling you from this analysis having been made, that would be the next step further.
One suggestion for, I mean, I don't know if you did it, but for us, I actually agree with the point. I'm an international faculty person, trained at a university in the United States, but from Mexico, and also had to go through the same thing, going from a tier 1 institution an institution who was developing to become a tier 1. So I understand that, and I think you need to compare also the national faculty with international. But my point is more about the tenure and the publication. Maybe you want to look at the publication practices in other countries, like in Europe, in regions in Europe or Latin America. There is a lot of, in the area of humanities, in particular, people have research groups, like in sciences, and also other social sciences. My experience in the United States is that when you go to a tenure situation, when an institution look at your publications, they don't understand when you publish with 2 or 3 people, when you are in the humanities. And I noticed that some international colleagues, when they go up for tenure, when they publish articles or books with other people, they get some negative feedback because they are not doing it one single author, as is used in the humanities in the United States. So maybe I'll invite you to see what are the faculty members in the humanities and other disciplines, how they see the teamwork. Because if they come from countries where they do teamwork, when they come here to the United States, in some disciplines, they only do a single work, and I think that could be a misfit. Another aspect, just a suggestion for a variable in your study.
Yeah, thank you.
In case you didn't do it.
We included questions in relation to how they conceptualize research and how they do research, and working with colleagues was there, but since the analysis was more in terms of how they relate to the institution, what we analyze is how these groups of research help them connect with this particular environment. But yeah, definitely is a good extra variable that we could compare.
Any other questions from the floor? Thank you very much. So at this point, I'd like to invite our third speaker, right? Amy Lay, from here at CSU San Bernardino. She'll be speaking on the topic of shortening the distance between native speakers and international students.
All right, thank you. Very good. First of all, thank you for coming and staying. And I see several familiar faces. And also that I really enjoyed the first 2 presenters. And I taught in Oklahoma State University for a year. So I wish you were there when I was there. And also the second presenter, the international faculty. I'm the international faculty as well. But unfortunately, I didn't get more paid than the domestic faculty. All right, so what I'm going to share, I think we go from university level to international faculty, and I'm going to share the things happening in my course that I work with the international students and how I mainly leverage the power, all right, of the international students and also domestic students in my course. My name is Amy, as the chair mentioned, and professor, also the coordinator of the instructional technology program at college education in our university. And very quickly, the overview, I'm going to share the background, which means that why do I conduct this course, this redesign and course evaluation. And also afterwards, I will share the objectives of this project and the methodology I use in this course, and I will share the results with you and provide a conclusion. A little bit background, probably some of you have similar experience like I do, is that in the college of education, we mainly have native speaker, domestic students, all right? Which means that we don't have many international students. Perhaps the TESOL program have more international students, but the majority of the programs, mainly they do the Prudential, teaching at California, so mainly are native speakers. So similarly to our program, Instructional Technology, a couple of years ago, right now it really changed a lot. You will be able to see some data later. But several years ago, it's mainly international, domestic students. We only have a couple in our courses. They are from other countries. All right. So during that time, when I taught class, I noticed that I have some challenges. All right. And for example, the class dynamics. The international students, they are pretty quiet. So which means that when we have this discussion, they are always sit there and listen, smile, and nod. All right, but they don't talk much. Okay. And on the contrary, the domestic students, the native speaker, they very often dominate the conversation. All right, especially if we have some cultures that, like the first presenter mentioned, that interruption it's very common and acceptable, all right? So which means that some international students, I would say probably mainly Asian students, they are very quiet. Okay. So that's the challenges, one of the challenges in the course. Another challenge is that when we do the teamwork, the international students very often feel intimidated. One is because there's that language barrier. The second one is that they really don't know too much about the education system in the United States. For example, if you talk about No Child Left Behind. But the foreign students, they really don't have the background to understand the system here, all right? So when they do the teamwork, very often they also feel they are not right in the right place. And another challenge is that for the domestic students, they very often they feel that the international students is kind of the burden for them, all right? So which means that when we write a paper or something, domestic students will come to me and say, I have an international student in my group. Can I get extra credit? And I said, for what? Okay. So those are some challenges we encounter. Okay. So then, and I thought, okay, which means that the domestic students are more powerful than the international students. And then I asked myself, is that how I could leverage this, okay? So then I applied for an internal grant from our Teaching Resource Center, and then I redesigned the course, okay? So what I did is that, first I will share the course. This course is an Instructional Technology graduate course. It's focusing on research, so which means that students learn quantitative and qualitative research methods and then apply into a research project they do in the field of instructional technology. And that's the course number. The objectives of this project, or course redesign or course evaluation, is to leverage power of native speaker and the international students in the course. And second one is that enhance students' understanding of diversity through conducting research, and enhance students' appreciation of diversity, and enhance students' learning using current technologies, because our field is the instructional technology. And also for professor, also coordinator, I'm very interested to learn how we can better serve our international students in the program. The methodology I use project-based learning and also use technology I will share later. Right? The project-based learning is that I have the students conduct research, and this is a team research project. They learn methods we mentioned earlier, and then they need to apply into a research project. All right? And we call that research project is a diversity project. Each team, no maximum will be like 4 students, all right? And then they were told they have to have international students in the group as well as the native speaker in the group. And I give them a research inquiry, which is to learn about education system in a minimum of 2 countries. And they learn different methods of the research, but they do need to use one of the method interview, to interview a person from a foreign country, went through the education system in another country. So that's kind of the parameter I set for the students, okay? What I hope is that through this process, project-based learning, and then through this teamwork, I hope that the international students will be able to serve as the resources rather than a burden in a team, because they went through the education system in another country, so they have a lot to contribute. All right? So that's part of what I hope to accomplish in this course redesign. The technology we use in this course, we use the wikis to form the groups, which means that the students choose their own members. But I just to say that you have to have international and native speakers both in the group. So they form their groups using Wiki. They use the Google Doc to do the paper construction. And they use the Google form to collect the data. And they use the Skype to do the group discussion. All right, and then they use the peer editing tool, for example, track change, to edit their paper collectively. I also create a group space in the Blackboard so that they will be able to talk to their group members at Blackboard. And we use the discussion board for them to provide critique. At the end, they post their research paper, and then their members or the class members will be able to critique their work. All right. The questions I was interested to find out from this experience is that to what extent does the course redesign change the class dynamic? Like we mentioned earlier, the course is that international students are a little bit timid or quiet. I would like to see whether that changed a little bit or not from this experience. The second one is I would like to see to what extent does the course change the teamwork dynamic. All right. I hope no students will come in and ask, say, I need extra credit because I have international students in my class, in my team. I also very interesting to find out what are the effects of the course redesign on the students' learning, whether they like it and what do they learn from this experience. The data collection is that I gave a survey at the end of this project, the Likert scale, 1 to 5. And I also conducted observation in class and also online as well. Okay. And I also used the instructor's journaling, which means that I took notes after class or from the online discussion. Data analysis rely on descriptive statistics. I get a mean of the survey, Likert scale, and then also content analysis. The subjects, all right, so perhaps once you see this, you can see actually the composition of this class, they are quite sound foreign students. Okay. So it's a graduate students in the course, and we have total 19 students, and 5 are native speakers, and 5 is immigrants, which means that they are also native speakers, but they have a little bit different background. They are 4 from Mexico, 1 from Korea. All right, so they were born there and then they immigrated to the United States. International students, we have 2 from China, Korea, Saudi, and Taiwan. So that's the composition of the student in the course. The results, okay, is that I noticed that the class dynamics changed. All right, before students are international students were very quiet, but from this experience, I noticed that the internationals, they spoke up more. They share more. And the domestic students rely on them for the data collection because they were the one being able to share the education system in their country. All right. So that's really, I was very glad to see that really leverage the power. Within the teamwork, and like I mentioned earlier, the native speakers, they don't no longer think, oh, that's a burden to me. All right, actually they see that's a resource for me because I learned how things work in that country in terms of education. Effects on students' learning. I asked the students whether they think they better understand the education system of other countries. That's the mean, 4.55, all right, out of 5, that's pretty high. Whether they better understand diverse culture, the mean is 4.64. And whether they feel they can better communicate with people from diverse background, 4.09, that's the mean. And increase knowledge of some countries, 3.82, all right. So that is a little bit lower than I expected, all right. And increase confidence to work with people from different countries, it's 4. And appreciation of other countries, 4.45. The last one is very interesting to me is that whether they increase appreciation of their own culture, their own background, and the mean is 4.82. All right. So we can see some quote from the students. I think Meng was in that class, so yeah, I noticed that she was smiling. She was in that class, and part of data I haven't shared with the students actually. All right. So the results, those are the quote. All right, so I will let you, probably I'll give you a few seconds so that you can take a look at the students' response. All right, so which means that they feel that they learn a lot from each other. And this one. So which means that the work between domestic students and the international students, the stress, sometimes they feel that people are not, but that's happening in every teamwork, all right? So it's not really unique for this class. Next one. All right, so very often that sometimes in the group, and then the native speaker, they are very interesting to know the international students, all right? Like for example, in this course I taught last quarter, I taught one class, we have a lot of Saudi students, but we don't have this set up in the course. So during the last meeting, and then we have a potluck, students bring their food, and then we share. And then I noticed there were a lot of conversation and dialogues between native speakers and the international students. They were very, very interesting to learn about Saudi culture, all right? But we had that set up in that course, but we didn't have that set up in this course the last quarter. So I was thinking that I should have a little bit more in the course, and so that the students and the native speaker will be able to conduct certain kind of culture exchange. This is from another two students. Those two, I think, were the most powerful for me. All right, it's because like the first one that students from Asian country, all right, probably from the reading we can tell it's from Asian country, and that was very stressful because the entrance examination to the university. All right, so some students, based on commit suicide when they were in high school because just the stress. All right. So the native speaker, they said, oh, we heard of this. We learned, we read it from the newspaper. However, I didn't really feel it so strongly until I heard it from the student who went through that education system. All right? So I think that was very powerful for me as an instructor by hearing that. Next one also is appreciation for teachers. All right? And the foreign students, they will say, yeah, you guys, the teacher, you have a lot of freedom. But then the native speaker will say, but teachers in your country are respected, but in our country, less. So those are, I think, it's really very powerful experience for students and as well for instructors as well. The challenges we mentioned earlier, the language barrier and the writing check, those are still similar. All right, there are some, although we reduced a little bit. Okay. And another thing I noticed that the male and female, and because in some culture, the male seems to be in a little bit higher status, all right? That also revealed in this course as well. So sometimes I have to kind of like pull the student aside and then mention, say, it's in the class, and we don't, so kind of give a little bit additional education to the students. And the scheduling issue, because full-time students, international students are full-time, but domestic students, they are mainly work in service, they work full-time. Okay. And I think that the number of the international students in this course is one of the contributing factors make this successful. Okay, because I was asking myself, if I don't have such a composition, whether I will get a similar results or not. All right, I'm not very sure, but I'm very interested to continue this study in another class and to find out more about this kind of course redesign and evaluation. Conclusion, the course redesign was successful, and also the project learning and the use of technology, also all those went smoothly. And some challenges remain, like I mentioned earlier, all right, and more research needs to be done, and I'm personally very interested in continuing this. I use this as an action research in my classes. All right, any questions? Thank you.
It seems so meaningful that you're able to see the contrast between the class where you designed this interaction and another class you had where you possibly could have designed the interaction, you didn't, and the results were so different. And I think it's that kind of intentional thing that many of us as professors overlook. We make assumptions that because people are there in the room with us, all these other things will happen. And they don't usually happen unless you design some way to do it. So I commend you on it, and I find it very interesting. And I know I've toyed with some of this in my own classes, more by accident, just having international students there rather than the design of it. So thank you.
All right, you are very welcome. Thank you. Yes?
Hi, I think you are starting to get at what I wanted to ask about, because I had sort of a similar experience on the student end of it. I'm a graduate student, and I was in a comparative education class. We were assigned to do partner papers, and my partner was Japanese. And I'm very much like outspoken, I talk first, I get things done, American kind of student. And she and I really didn't get along. We had a very hard time. And I'm wondering, you know, it was a similar assignment. It was a comparative paper. We had to look at education systems, but certain components of my experience is different than the way you designed yours. For instance, we didn't look at each other's education systems. We each picked one that was unfamiliar to us. And also, we didn't have the structure of having told, oh, we need to use track changes, we need to use that. So I'm curious as to which components of your class design you think were most impactful. And also, if you didn't, you know, if you only had a couple international students and you weren't able to look at each other's education systems but others, how would you still facilitate interaction?
Very good question. So let me answer the first question. What's the most important one? All right. To me, I think the most important one is the design of the project, the diversity project, which means that I set the parameter for them. They have to have the native speaker and the international student group, and they have to use one of the methods, which is interview, and then they have to interview the person who went through that education system. So I think that that design is the most powerful and most impact the students the most. Right? The second question is, if I don't have such a composition, yes, yeah. Like I mentioned earlier, I said this can be so successful because I saw the composition of students. It's really allowed me to do this successfully. All right. So I'm interested to see if I will have different composition and what I would do and whether I will have such an impact or not. So I'm going to continue doing that, and I will be very happy to share with you once I have more information. All right. Yes.
Just an observation. I use a lot of virtual teams, and I've noticed that the international students are very brave behind the keyboard. So when they have to post when they're not talking to each other, it changes the dynamics. It also changes the dynamic between male and female as a group, and then they don't have any problems about working, time constraints. They can get together. So I've noticed that when you move to a virtual team so that they're working online, not at the same time, but to post and do what they wanted. That was just an observation.
Yes, and I think that's a very good suggestion. All right, using more virtual. We also have the space and or the Skype, those kind of things. All right, and that also helps to a certain degree. And I agree. I think that's more use of that, and that might be able to even leverage more about the differences between male and female. Thank you. Yes.
Just two questions. One, was this a blind study, or did your students know that you were observing them, testing them, figuring out what they were doing while they were doing this activity? Did they know that, or did they not know that?
They were informed that action research study will be done. Okay, but they were not informed about the design. For example, how I structured the course, because they just students follow the course of the instructors.
And then second follow-up question, what was the, I guess, the content of the project? Was it studying primary, secondary, tertiary education, or was it just, you know, the master's degree level, or was it the whole process?
The students can choose, the team can choose whatever the education system they want to focus on. So it could be elementary, it could be higher education. Some of them, they even talk about, look at the extra curriculum at the school. So this team can make the decision. Yes?
My question is about the virtual team. How do you measure relative performance of a virtual team, particularly in a multicultural environment? So measuring the team members' performance. For example, do you get them to self-measure, much as we see in MOOCs, for example, even though it may not be the final say, but it gives you some guidance as an instructor? I wonder if you have any thoughts on that.
Okay. I really didn't conduct a study in that area for this course, all right? And I personally feel that because we do have the group space, but we didn't really, it's just a tool for them to facilitate their collaboration. But I didn't really look into that area.
I'm asking what maybe advice you might draw from it, though. I know you didn't study it, but is there anything you might draw from the work you did in terms of how you might do that?
To measure their...
So let's say you get on a team of 4 people. The natural point is one person, my colleague in France never helped on anything in the team. So does the team all get an A and one gets an F type of thing? Is that, you know, how do you do that?
Very good point. All right. What I did before, I can share the experience with another class. What we did is that the students, when they work on the team, all right, and then I asked them, one, they have to identify their responsibility, which means that you are the leader, I'm the reporter, you are going to do data collection, you are going to do literature review. So they have to discuss and finalize this specific responsibility in the team. The second, I also have them, once they finish, all right, I ask them to do the peer evaluation. I gave them, the students in my course, they know, 17 points, which is that no matter how many members you divide, you have to have the decimal. But I told them 17 points, but you cannot have decimals. So which means that forced them to give a number, all right? And I said that number have to base on the contribution. So which means that they complete a peer evaluation, they provide the number, they assign the number based on their own evaluation of each individual's contribution. Number 2, they have to provide the rationale why I give this person 1 point, 5 points. So I have those set up to facilitate, to make sure that will be fair and equal. You're welcome.
One more question? We have one more question in the room. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
At this point, I'd like to introduce John Winslade, who's also a member of the College of Education here at CSU San Bernardino, and he is bringing with him students to tell stories. Yes?
That's right. Can we have the other microphone as well, so we can go back and forth? Okay, kia ora tātou. That's a greeting from New Zealand and Māori. Because we're going to talk about a study abroad trip to New Zealand from a group of students who are all part of the Master's Degree Program in Guidance and Counselling here at Cal State San Bernardino. My name's John Winslade, and I'm the President of Phi Beta Delta Gamma Lambda chapter here at Cal State San Bernardino, and in my spare time I teach in the Master's Program. We had a group of 7 students. One of them is not able to be here today, and rather than do a research study, what I want to do is to get these people to tell you stories, to give you a sense of a flavour of what the work that they did when they were on this study abroad program. They spent a month in New Zealand, all of them working in separate high schools, working with counsellors. They were not just there to observe, they were there to work. And so they all lived together in a house in central Auckland and used public transport to get to their schools every day, and then had the evening to share both informally and informal supervision sessions about what they were doing during the day. And then Lorraine Hedtke and I, she's also not able to be here today, but she and I would go and visit them in their schools and observe their work. So we want to convey something of the value of this experience through getting each of them to tell a story of some of the work that they did. You will hear when they're talking the use of some techniques and practices that come from the field of narrative therapy, narrative counselling, such as the techniques of helping clients distance themselves from problem stories that they're experiencing, especially through the technique of externalization. And then also the effort to help the same people grow a counter story, which is about how they make significant changes in their lives to move away from what they're finding problematic. All of these changes are designed to help students do well in school and to deal with personal problems that might otherwise threaten their learning. So I'm going to ask Amy Douglas to speak first and to tell us a story from the work that she did in Auckland.
Hi, I'm Amy Douglas. I'm currently a 9th grade English teacher out in the Coachella Valley, and I'm going to tell you about one of my first clients whose name we'll call her Camilla. Camilla came in really angry and frustrated one morning after a fight about a jumper, a sweater with her sister, and she started the whole session by saying that she had hoped to find a bird to kill that morning because she felt like killing something would make her feel better. Throughout the course of the conversation, we eventually got around to talking about who Camilla will be in the future, and we engaged with the voice of future Camilla. We talked a lot about what future Camilla wanted her life to be and what that life looked like. Future Camilla had a partner and kids whom she loved in a way that her love could never be doubted or questioned. Talking about future Camilla allowed us to use that voice to comment upon present Camilla's behavior now. We talked about how future Camilla is not a bird killer, nor is her anger or frustration ever so big that she can't control it. From there, we talked about practicing to be future Camilla. We discussed ways that Camilla could keep the anger and frustration from taking over and overwhelming her, or making her do things that future Camilla would not do. This was a particularly triumphant session for me. I felt that I had met the challenge that Camilla had set in front of me. And it was a good example of how I was able to develop as a counselor through this experience. I felt confident enough to try something new, and in particular to try out narrative counseling technique of time travel. I really love this technique because I feel that it offers a way to talk about values and ethics in a way that's maybe closer to the child or the client instead of just a vague concept of right and wrong. Generally, I think I evolved as a narrative counselor in particular in New Zealand. And a huge part of that was the opportunity to work with children exclusively. Children already naturally externalize and distance themselves from their problems. And because of that, it was easier to talk about alternative stories that don't include the problem, issue, or trait, or problem story. I was able to jump right in without having to spend time working towards that externalization. So it's really valuable.
Thank you, Amy. And the next person who has a story to tell is Korina Echeverria.
Hi, I'm Korina Echeverria. I'm finishing my 3rd year in the program, and I had the opportunity to meet a lot of great students, wonderful students in Tanderra College, where I was assigned in New Zealand, and particularly one student that really meant a lot to me. Her name is Damian. One of the main things that we learn in our program is never to post our values in our clients, but let them just kind of meet them where they are. And she came with me with something that was really challenging for me. I had a difficult time doing counseling when it comes to religious beliefs, and it was my fear of not coming across as judgmental, but that was paralyzing my conversations about religion in the counseling room, because I felt like I didn't want them to think that I was judging them or that I had certain beliefs that they didn't share. So I kind of always stay away from those conversations, but she brought it right into the counseling room, so it was not necessary. Unfortunately, the way that I was thinking was keeping me away from really important conversations. The reality is that faith is a big part of many clients' lives, and it was important for me to learn how to approach it. Diana had recently converted to Islam, And she was being a victim of a lot of rejection and bullying at school. And that was the reason why she came to counseling. I learned that the best approach was to be curious, but truly curious about how her faith was important for her. And listen carefully to the parts of her story that fit up with the problem and what fit up with the counter story. Discussing her faith uncovered her commitment to justice, her huge heart and desire to stand by those that seem to be in more disadvantaged positions. She asked me one day, and that was very challenging, what was my position in the Israel and Palestine conflict. And I was hesitant to answer, but I remember that very morning my supervisor had a conversation with me, and she explained that the best way to approach this kind of things was just to be transparent and honest about how we feel without minimizing or judging anybody else's beliefs. And that's what I did. I spoke about my commitment to compassion and how my heart was broken every time I would see children killed in the conflict, and how it was devastating to see that because adults couldn't get their thing together, children were suffering. And it was great because that was enough for her. She said, okay, I agree, I'll see you tomorrow. And I know that if I would have said something different, I would take a side, maybe she would have just never come back to the counseling room. So that moment was particularly important to me because he assured me that my genuine intentions were coming across and that this topic was no longer some sort of taboo for me. I was able to develop a great relationship with her now and work and a couple of activities to develop her identity and strengthen her positive traits and building and kind of help her understand herself better.
Thank you, Korina. That was a wonderful story of her work at Tangaroa College in Auckland. Next is Joanna Garcia.
Hello, good afternoon. I'm Joanna Garcia, and I'm going to be talking about a story that I worked with a student. So one significant piece of counseling I did involved using the metaphorical tree of life. In this process, all the aspects of the tree are used to represent elements of a person's life. For example, the roots represent foundational beliefs, the trunk represent core values, branches represent favorite activities, and the leaves represent people that they care for, or vice versa. And the fruit represent actions that have taken an effect of the life of the tree. The tree lives in a forest with other trees and might encounter storms, sun, wind, and rain, which represents life events and experiences. So, as students have the opportunity to draw in their tree, at the same time they speak about the aspects of their own life, which represents and it's projected on the drawing of the tree. So I introduced this idea to the student, and she liked the idea, so I followed through with it, and I didn't realize until the end the great impact it had on the student's life. So the tree metaphor helped her understand and see things in her own life in a different way that she would have never thought about, especially when it created new hopes and dreams. And she created the person she wanted to become. The most touching piece of this tree was that I became part of the student's tree. It meant a lot to know that just in several weeks I had become part of this tree without even realizing the impact I had on someone else. This helped me develop my counseling skills by acknowledging the importance it is to find meaning to experience and situation that has shaped or will shape a person to be who they will become. It was impressive to see the difference this process made in her life. I learned the value of using the metaphor, arts and crafts and activity to help someone meaning to their life and what makes a difference to their lives.
Thank you. Thank you, Joanna. And next is Crystal Howard.
Hi there, I'm Crystal Howard. I would like to tell you all about a significant piece of counseling that I did with a young girl who I'll call Emily. The first day that I met Emily, I was made privy to a private journal that she kept. She was experiencing voices that were encouraging her and demanding that she hurt herself. And these voices were encouraging her to write in her journal with blood. The most significant work that I did was with a young girl who was experiencing these voices. When I first met with this student, she was so desperate to meet with a counselor, and she was so desperate to take a stand against these voices, and also the cutting. She described battling with certain problems in her life, such as friendship issues and also family feuds, but what stood out as most important to me was this young girl's fervor with which she wanted to stand against the voices. In the brief time that I spent with her, she exhibited so much bravery. She consistently sought to do exactly what the voices kept telling her not to do, which was to tell people and invite them into her story. As she invited me in, the voices seemed to have less control over her actions. With every person that she invited into her story and her life, the voices did get angrier at her, but yet somehow she grew more confident in her ability to take a stand against the damage that they were doing in her life. In the end, we had met with her best friend and also her mother, so that she had one person at school and one person at home that could help her take a stand against the challenges that she was facing. This experience was very difficult and a very trying example of my work as a counselor. At the time, I didn't feel prepared. I was very nervous that I wouldn't be able to help and that I certainly wasn't equipped to be able to do so. But after seeking supervision with all of my colleagues and Dr. Winslade as well as Dr. Lorraine Hedtke, I felt much more confident in not only my questions, but my ability to help this student. And I have learned so much from this counseling scenario that I'll be able to pull from it and from this experience in New Zealand the next time that I'm working with a young person who hears voices, but wants to figure out a way to live with them in spite of them. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Crystal. Yeah, I think applause is fine. Next, we're going to hear from Stephanie Zacharias.
Yes, my name is Stephanie Zacharias, and today I'll just share a small story of how being in New Zealand impacted me as a counselor, or as a future counselor. So if I had to describe with one word what I think has developed most in terms of my counseling, the word would be confidence. I will share the story of a very special girl who I met through conversations. And without her knowing, not only did I help her, but she helped me in various ways. Through my conversations with this lovely young lady, I have realized that by genuinely caring for another person and caring to know that their story, caring to know that what their story is makes all the difference in the world when being a counselor. I realize that there may be times where I may not have all the right questions or exactly what path I'm going to take, yet as long as I remain genuine, curious, and display honest empathy, that alone could make the difference a client needs to see in their lives. Knowing this reminds me that I am capable of being a counselor that could contribute to a person's life. As I write this, my mind keeps going back to this young lady who couldn't express enough how much it amazed her that a random stranger as myself would be so interested in simply listening to her stories. And that thought alone brings a smile to my face because I have left knowing that somehow our experience together has left a small footprint in her life.
Thank you, Stephanie. Next we have Dory Lillard.
Hello, I'm going to be sharing a story about a young girl that I worked with in New Zealand. I worked at an all-girls school called Epsom, and this young girl was, she was harming herself, she was cutting, she was having a multitude of problems over some issues that her parents were having over a divorce. So this is my story with Ellie. Ellie was in year 10 and was one of my first clients I worked with at Epsom. She had severe depression, suicide ideation, eating disorders, panic attacks, and she was self-harming. The underlying reason for most of these symptoms seemed to be the effects from a very traumatic divorce situation and an ongoing battle between mom and dad. Her parents divorced when she was 9, but had pulled her into the middle of their ongoing disputes for most of her life. The strain from the situation has created a multitude of problems for Ellie. Due to the self-harm and suicide ideation, I made a point to see Ellie twice a week on Mondays and Fridays. I would also consult with my supervisor after each session for guidance and collaboration. I noticed an improvement with Ellie each time we met. With careful investigation of unique outcomes along with some deconstructive questioning, Ellie began having a brighter outlook on life. An alternative story was created through our counseling session, which gave her hope that wasn't there when I first met her. She discovered coping skills that helped her through the urges to self-harm, and over time seemed generally happier. This was a clear indication that my counseling skills have developed and are improving. During the last few sessions, I noticed a significant improvement overall. She had not self-harmed since our first counseling session, and she seemed to have a new outlook on her situation, which hopefully will carry on throughout her life.
Thank you, Dory. Thank you very much. And next we have Samantha Stevens, who's not able to be here, so I will just read her story out for you. Samantha says, a significant piece of work I did was with a student that was struggling with body image issues that resulted in cutting and eating disorders. When I first met the student, she would go almost a week without eating and then would binge, purge and cut. She also struggled with drugs and alcohol usage. This cycle was externalized as what she called ritual. Ritual came around because she felt like she needed to fit into a certain size and weigh a certain amount. We talked about ritual during my 4-week stay, and I chose to use my 2 university supervision appointments with this client. I needed help with how to deal with ritual. During our first meeting, she told me that she didn't know what to do with her life and that she didn't find anything interesting. She told me she hated going to school, but I knew that she had to want to come on some level because she was there. And this young woman never did anything that she did not want to do. This was because she came across as a very stubborn and determined person. During our last appointment, she had changed immensely. She had some experience of teaching junior high students, and she felt like she had decided that she wanted to become a teacher. She enjoyed the experience and told me that she would hate it if ritual decided to bother any of the young women she met. Now she told me that she had been eating 6 small meals a day and had the goal of attending university in mind. I was happy that my university professor was there to see the change. I would not have believed it if I didn't see it. In that moment, I felt like the counselling techniques I learned had worked. This was something my client chose to do on her own. I had only helped guide her and ask questions that made her think about her desired alternative story. So those are just a series of stories which I hope give you a sense of the kind of work. There are many other stories that could be told, but those ones give a flavour for the kind of work that this group of people did while they were doing their study abroad experience in New Zealand. In these stories, what I hope you hear is the work that they did, was not trivial. They were thrown into the complexities and the intensities of the lives of students in New Zealand high schools. Each of them faced significant challenges. They were not just tourists. Rather, they had the experience of encountering young lives in moments of challenge. The relationships they constructed with these young people gave them an intimate look into the experience of being young in another country. It was not the kind of experience you can buy as a package tour, but it reflected the best of what study abroad can offer. Thank you.
We have questions.
It's fascinating stories. I really appreciate all of them. I wonder from the student's point of view, what would you tell us would be a takeaway from the point of view of a study abroad? I suspect some of you hadn't much traveled previously, so maybe what can you tell us one thing that you would really resonate with you from that experience overseas?
I think personally for me, not only was I learning about cultural differences, but it made me aware of my own culture and how it's impacted and how dominant it is in my life as an individual and even as a counselor. So just awareness, I guess.
With this particular experience, we're all full-time students, but also most of us have full-time jobs as well, and so trying to do our field work time, which is a lot of hours, has been really difficult. So this opportunity to go to New Zealand and just be a counselor for 7 hours a day was incredibly valuable, because there's a lot of your own emotional strain that happens when you're, instead of just doing an hour of meeting with kids, doing 7 hours of meeting with kids, and then also being part of an administration team and a community outreach team, and just feeling what it felt like to be a professional school counselor. And I think that experience for at least a few of us up here really solidified whether that is what we want to do or what we don't want to do. But also just being separated, I think, from your families and your loved ones, and we never did figure out how to work the television. So it was just us, and we only had us, and it helped us to figure out supervision and what it means to work with your colleagues. I think for a lot of us that are in positions where we don't work with our colleagues that often, so it was just that encapsulating effect that was really beneficial, and kind of getting a taste of the real world. I know that was my experience. So.
Just real quick, for me it was very important to understand that our differences are not as big as the things that we have in common. It was amazing because the same problems that children were faced with in New Zealand are the same problems that children are faced with here in the United States. So that was a really important thing to learn, and to see that, yeah, we can help, in any way.
I thought it was interesting to compare the differences in school cultures. I worked at the schools here in California and then in New Zealand. They have a very different type of culture. There's a culture of caring that seems to be absent here. So I found that very interesting, and also the school staff, how they work together for the students, and I thought that was really quite unique about my experience.
Any other questions from the floor? Thank you very much for great presentation.
Thank you so much, Dr. John Winslade, and thank you so much for your fantastic panelists. I think your panel epitomized, actually also exemplified the goal of our Phi Beta Delta Honor Society, which is we want to foster young scholars and students who have a lot of international experience, or they're just starting out, have the international experience, and we want them to get fired up and passionate about international education, and start thinking about doing research in addition to their own professional or their academic experience. And so for this conference, we have visiting scholars from China, we have scholars from Kenya, we have students, we have faculty who are junior faculty, we also have faculty who are full professors, we have professors who brought their student with them, we have professors who brought their visiting scholars with us, and so we're very thankful that you participate in our conference. And also I want to thank Dr. Esther Schill for putting up this fantastic conference for us, and I also want to thank our volunteer, Dr. Rowena Santiago, who was, fiercely working at the registration desk since 7 o'clock this morning, and tomorrow she'll be there initially at 6 o'clock. So I want to thank all the volunteers. So if you're a volunteer, if you happen to be a volunteer and you are inside the room, can you please stand up so we could thank you for all your help. The presenters, again, without you, we would not have a successful conference. So we want to thank you for participating in our conference. And without further ado, now I would like to bring Mr. Paul Maya, the Assistant VP of International Program, and I would say our strongest supporter of Phi Beta Delta Honor Society. You may not know, he was actually the one who spearheaded and initiated the idea of having Cal State San Bernardino to host the headquarters of Phi Beta Delta Honor Society. So thank you, Paul, for again keeping the passion for international education go on our campus. So Paul will introduce our President Morales, Dr. Morales, to talk about the Hispanic Association of College Education in our university's initiative. So Paul, take it away.
Thank you again. Thank you. It is my pleasure to say a few words about our president. Dr. Tomás Morales was elected as president of California State University, San Bernardino in May 2012. He's the university's fourth president since it opened in 1965. Previously, Dr. Morales was president of the College of Staten Island, the City University of New York, CUNY, since 2007. From 2001 to 2007, Morales served in various capacities at Cal Poly Pomona, including Provost and Vice President of Academic Affairs, Vice President for Student Affairs, and Professor of Education. While at Cal Poly, he established the Kellogg Honors College, realigned the Division of Academic Affairs, and played a key role in completing a $23 million expansion of the Bronco Student Center. Prior to joining Pomona, Morales was Vice President for Student Affairs and Dean of Students at the City College of New York from 1994 to 2001. From 1992 to 1994, Morales was Assistant Dean of the School of Education at the State University of New York in New Paltz. Dr. Morales holds a BA in History from SUNY New Paltz and earned his MS and PhD in Educational Administration and Policy Studies from SUNY Alvin. Having served as an educator and administrative leader in higher education for more than 39 years, he's one of the few higher education administrators in the U.S. who has held senior administrative positions at the three largest public university systems in the nation: the CSU, the State University of New York, and the City University of New York. On the national level, Dr. Morales serves as the chair of the Board of Governors of the Hispanic Association of Colleges and Universities, known as HACU. He's the immediate past president of the Board of Directors of the American Association of State Colleges and Universities, and he's a member of the Board of the American Council on Education. This condensed bio does not include Dr. Morales' accomplishments in the international arena. Under his leadership, our campus has experienced an unprecedented expansion in international programs. For example, CSUSB has doubled the number of education abroad opportunities, leads the CSU in the number of new MOUs and MOAs, organized alumni chapters abroad, and placed CSUSB among the top 20 comprehensive universities in the nation with regards to international student populations, just to name a few. So please help me welcome Dr. Tomás D. Morales.
Thank you, Paul, for that generous introduction. And welcome. Welcome to Cal State San Bernardino. For those of you who are visiting, I know that you're staying at the Mission Inn, which is a very wonderful historical hotel. And certainly a warm welcome and hi to my colleagues who are really make our work in international education very exciting and very dynamic. You know, presidents invest in things that they believe will move the institution forward and that are important to the institution. So some presidents invest in football teams, and other presidents invest in other parts of athletic programs, or they invest in a particular academic department or college. And I have, by intention, have made very significant investments in our international programs, monetarily, in terms of staffing, in terms of support, because I really believe that international education is critically important on two levels. You know, I kind of break it down to an import-export box. You know, the import box is really to invite faculty, staff, and students from abroad to join Cal State San Bernardino for a year, for 2 years, in a whole array of different structures, whether it's inviting students to come for their entire baccalaureate or master's degree program, whether it's creating 2+2 programs that we've had with Chinese institutions and an institution in Vietnam. We're in our first year of a 2+2 program, inviting and participating in organizations. I haven't even shared this with the International Center, but as part of our 50th anniversary, Alan Goodman, the president of the Institute for International Education, has agreed to come to the campus and keynote a program about international education. Alan is someone that I became good friends with when I served as president of the College of Staten Island. His office is in the United Nations. And he and I had an opportunity to travel in Vietnam, and we've maintained a very close relationship. So we're just trying to find a date when he's not globetrotting around the world for him to come. And we're going to do this with other campuses in the LA Basin, both public and private, talking to the president of Laverne University to participate in listening to listen to Alan and talk about the centrality and importance of international education. I will share with you that when Alan, in a visit that I had with him in December of 2013, he said to me, you know, Tomas, and it's interesting because the Institute of International Education actually keeps very good data on the involvement of each institution's activities. And so he knew exactly how many Gilman Fellows we've had. He knew exactly how many Fulbright Fellows we've had. And he said, you know, Tomas, you have not invited, you have not participated in the Rescue Scholars Program. And I said, yeah, I'm aware of that. And, you know, it's very difficult as a president or even as a provost to plant a faculty member in a department, right? Departments will perceive that as being intrusive, as inappropriate. And in fact, it's really unfair to the faculty member because it's so important for the faculty member to be willing to embrace that visiting faculty member. But so I shared that with the deans, and I kind of pushed and prodded and said, you know, wouldn't it be nice, and I'll fund it, and you know, and Jamal Nassar was really the first dean to call me and say, you know, Tomas, I think our political science department would be willing to invite an Ethiopian scholar to spend a year on our campus. And we were able this year to have our first Rescue Scholar program. And that's very, very, I've completely deviated from my remarks, but I'll get to them. But you know, to me that's very, very important, because first of all, when you look at their vitas, these are accomplished scholars, and they're being prosecuted because of their political position, because of their sexual orientation, because they write about issues of social justice. And these are our colleagues who have graduated from the best universities in the world, and they find themselves, whether it's in Colombia, whether it's in Middle Eastern countries or Africa being prosecuted for who they are as academic leaders. And I wish every college would come up and say, you know, Tomas, we're willing, because the package of information that the Institute for International Education provides is quite impressive. And we were able to get the resident hall, the residential life to contribute a small little apartment, and I believe that we've been enriched by that faculty member. And so, and I will share with you that I think we have a very long history, predates my arrival as president. I see Rosalie here, my good friend and colleague. You know, we've been doing this for a long time. I think we're continue to grow, as Paul mentioned. We were in Japan last summer, and we had an alumni reunion of over 50 alumni. And I define alumni. You know, there's been a question of, well, how do institutions define alumni, right? We had that conversation actually yesterday at the CSU President's Council. And I've kind of come full circle, because I think any student who has spent time with us, I'll say they're an alumnus. And the reason why I say that is because when I spent time at this alumni reunion and talked to students who had spent a complete four-year degree. They earned a baccalaureate degree here. They're Japanese. They earned a baccalaureate degree here. They went back home. And I spoke to the graduates of our program with Yasada University, or I spoke to others who only spent a year here. Their love of CSUSB is the same. Their affinity to this university is exactly the same than those students who actually earned a baccalaureate degree. So I've kind of come full circle. I've evolved personally relative to who do we consider alumni of this university. And I think it's important, particularly when you are considering international education. I am really delighted to be here. This is my 40th year in higher education, and I've always said that you know, it's all about our students. And the wonderful thing about serving as president and actually being a member of this university community is that my colleagues feel the same way. The faculty, the staff, by and large, you know, 100% of course not, but the great majority of our faculty and staff believe that it's all about the students and really go out of their way to embrace our students, and that includes, of course, our international students. And we do our very best to provide the best education, a quality collegiate experience. We work at nurturing our students. We provide them with challenging educational programs. I caught the tail end of these presentations, and I was struck by the students who talked about their work with young people. We transform lives. This is what Cal State San Bernardino does. And in transforming the lives of our students, we are also transforming their communities, because they go back to their communities, whether it's in Riverside or San Bernardino or Korea or China or Costa Rica or Puerto Rico. They transform their communities. And that's the powerful nature of the transformative role that we play here. International education clearly elevates the collegiate experience. Phi Beta Delta Honor Society really plays a very critical role, a very significant role in recognizing the scholarly achievement in international education. Founded in 1987 at Long Beach, it now has grown to 38 chapters. It was the first honor society dedicated to recognizing scholarly achievement in international education, giving scholarships to deserving students, and enhancing knowledge about the various cultures around the world. If I had a wish, I would fund and require every single student to have at least one international experience.
Yeah.
That would be my wish. And there are institutions, as we all know, they tend to be more affluent. They tend to serve more affluent students who do, in fact, require every student to have an international experience. We're not there yet, but we're certainly working at that. And I think it's so important. And indeed, this wonderful honor society really have chapters all over the world, and it's so critical. I hope that we can continue to build and develop structures that in a more profound way, tie students' curricula interests with their international experiences, because it's so important for students to tie those curricula interests, whether you're an accounting student or a communication student or a foreign language student, to have that international experience. But I also feel that it's important to provide opportunities for students to serve internationally. So I was so pleased that our university's Office of Community Engagement brought 12 students this past year in an alcohol and drug-free alternative education program to Puerto Rico. And not because I'm Puerto Rican, by the way, I had nothing to do with this. Next year I want to go with them. I told them that, to invite me. But they went to build housing, to provide service to non-profit organizations in the San Juan metropolitan area. And I'm very interested in that model. So there are opportunities to develop college credit. There's opportunity to participate in an immersion program, whether it's a language immersion program, or perhaps go to London to enjoy the theater on the West End, or, there's just so many examples of activities that will enrich our students. I am really deeply committed to service. And I'm so pleased that when I'm reading the strategic plan, and those of you, I'm now speaking to members of our university community, you should go on the website and read the thinking of our colleagues. We have an exciting strategic plan formulating, and that strategic plan speaks to high impact areas that we're going to require every graduate to participate in 3 HPIs. International education is a very powerful, high impact area. And Phi Beta Delta will play a very significant role in that process. Let me talk to you about the work that my colleagues are doing. So we have over 200 active agreements in 20 countries, including Spanish-speaking countries of Mexico, Spain, Peru, Costa Rica, Brazil, Portuguese-speaking countries. We have over 980 international students on campus from 44 countries. Our primary port of entry from Saudi Arabia, China, South Korea, but we continue to strengthen our programs in China. We admitted our first 10 students from Vietnam, National University of Economics in Vietnam and Hanoi, so those 10 students are currently here. We've had wonderful relationships with several universities in Japan. You know, and we work in very difficult circumstances because the CSU, rightfully so, is very cautious about risk and risk management, and the CSU tends to be very, very bureaucratic. So the staff really have to work very, very hard to convince the lawyers down at Long Beach that our colleagues are wonderful, and our colleagues take care of our students and would not put them in harm's way. But it's difficult. It's much easier. I speak to my presidential colleagues at private universities, and the red tape is significantly less. But we continue. We have a great international center. We have a wonderful College of Extended University. We actually have 2 vehicles to enroll international students, but I'm just as interested, my colleagues know this, to increase the number of students that travel abroad and to increase the number of faculty and staff who have opportunities to study abroad. We have an incredible, talented faculty on this campus, very, very dedicated faculty who do great work, staff who really care about our students. Let me share with you that I do serve as the chairman of the board of the Hispanic Association of Colleges and Universities. I'm really pleased to share with you that HACU has over 50 international partners. These are universities that are members of our organization from 9 countries in Spain, Latin America, and in the Caribbean. We have a commission on international education, and Eduardo Ochoa, president of Monterey Bay, represents the CSU on that commission. We have programs that focus on orientation of faculty, staff, and students. This year in Guadalajara, we have an international conference every other year. This year, for the first time, we had a student track. HACU is interesting. It's the only national association that at their annual meeting, and we'll be meeting in Miami in October, has a very robust student track. CSUSB, historically, has had one of the highest number of students. So we're planning to bring 40, primarily undergraduate students, to Miami to participate in a very structured student track where they have opportunities to interview with federal agencies, with the private sector, and as a result, many of our students, and you don't have to be Latino to go to HACU. You know, we bring students down. Many of our students went last year, coming by my office, and I love talking to students. My staff says, "You don't have time." I said, "Yeah, I do. I'll make the time." I have jobs now. They're actually going to work at positions where they actually interviewed at the national conference. This year at HACU, we have developed a pre-symposium, pre-annual meeting symposium on K-12 higher education partnerships. So this was something that I pushed as chair of the board, because I firmly believe that institutions of higher education must partner with K-12, particularly public institutions of higher education. We have a very, very close partnership with 20 different school districts. In fact, we'll have a meeting on May 12th with all 20 superintendents to talk about college readiness, to talk about graduation rates, to talk about how we recruit students here. Cal State San Bernardino is working very closely with the San Bernardino City Unified School District, and Dale Marsden is actually thinking about bringing a group of city San Bernardino students to Miami, and just I believe, I don't want to speak for the staff because they do all the work, but I believe that our next 2016 will be celebrating our 30th anniversary as an organization in San Antonio. And in 2017, January, February 2017, we will have our next international conference in Costa Rica. So, well, if I have anything to do with it, it'll be in Costa Rica, but you know, I'm only the chair of the board. So we're doing some really exciting work with HACU. But there are, you know, of course, ASCU is doing great work. The American Association of State Colleges and Universities. The American Council on Education is doing some great work. I think you know, what Dr. Goodman shared with me the other day on the phone was that he's really emboldened that higher education associations are really beginning, besides the National Association of International Educators that will be held in Boston. I plan to be there for the presidential track. You know, but that other organizations are joining and seeing the value of international education. So thank you. I know I have another speaking engagement, so I may not be able to stay. I know I'm not going to be able to stay long, but I want to thank you for being here. Thank you for participating. Welcome to CSUSB. Thank you.
Wasn't that inspirational, right? And also to hear that here they have all the support from the president, internationalizing the campus is really great, really a great model for many of us. And now it's time, before our business meeting, to please, the food has been served, so if we do, we do it by tables, so we're gonna have the president's table going first, and then we do it like that, so to avoid long lines, and then we convene, share our experiences, and then we have the business meeting. Okay, time for eating. So please, we invite President Morales' table, and then we go